Yo, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to my segment Education, which is dedicated to educating me on franchises and characters within the world of entertainment. And right now, joining me is my good friend, Mr. Sci-Fi Sentry, and he is here to educate me on a very particular character, a character that I don't know much knowledge of, but a character that really has come into his own and has built a huge following, and it is, of course, the character of Spawn. So, my good friend, Sci-Fi Century, welcome. And yes, we have started a little bit later than normal, but you know what? Shit happens, life happens. It's all good. Here we are. And so, let me know, my friend, when you first were introduced to Spawn, and tell me all that you know about this particular character.
Yes, sir. First of all, bro, I wanted to thank you for inviting me again to your channel, the Entertainment Headquarters. I'm always grateful and blessed, and just always ready to have
Hello,
fun with with my brother. Sci-Fi Society Collective, Entertainment Headquarters, Sci-Fi Society. So yeah, man, I just wanted to thank you for inviting me. Now, as a '90s teenager, I just every it, first, I just want to start from the beginning before we get deeper into that. Uh, I heard about Todd McFarlane as he was originally also a artist and illustrator for Marvel, and he was well known for Spider-Man, Venom, all of that. So, but once I heard of Spawn, I didn't hear of Spawn till a little bit later, like maybe 90, maybe 93. But that's when I first saw one of the comics that one of my cousins were talking about because we were into comics, and
Mhm.
I read it. It's like, who's this? Who's Spawn? Who is this new? Who is this new, or what is this new comic book? These new comic book illustrators or comic company that's called Image,
Yeah.
and we'll get to that later. But I think that's the first time, probably 93, late 92, 93 is when I heard of Spawn, because in the 90s, Spawn, even though there wasn't internet, any of that, there was always word of mouth. And when you're a teenager, middle school, and all that, like there was always a convenience store next to everywhere. So there's a convenience store like walking distance from the school I went to. So you go to the school, you go to school, then after school you go to what does every kid teenager go to? They go to the 7-Eleven, they go to the Good Time store, they
Mhm.
get treats, nachos, chips, whatever, and the comic books are just right there, right in front of the store. So that's what I mainly would go for, and that's how I discovered more. That's how I discovered Spawn, and but mostly Spawn was word of mouth, and then I started seeing the comic books. But that's like it had to be 90 late 92, 93.
Mhm. Like me, very similar story to you. I'm a huge Hellboy fan, which is created by Mike
Mm-hmm.
Mignola. I have all of his comic books, like not mostly, I've got most of his trade paperbacks over the comics, because if you collect comic books, obviously it can be very, it's having the space to collect them and to store them. I
Mm-hmm.
started off getting a handful of the original comics, and then I ended up just buying the trade paperback collections of each of the stories. And I
Mm-hmm.
very much like you, I was in a comic book store here in Newcastle in the UK, and I just happened to come across this unique looking character on the front of a comic book, and it was something about the look of the character just gravitated to us. So because I gravitated it, I just knew I had to have the book, and I started reading about Hellboy, fell in love with that particular character. So like similar to what happened with you, just walking into a 7-Eleven, coming across this comic book cover with this really cool looking character. I can understand why it gravitated you and why you had to pick it up and read it.
No, yeah. I mean, It's because, like I said, to add information now, uh, Todd McFarlane started as an independent company. That's how Image was born. That's how it was started, and they wanted it to be independent because that's the reason why Todd McFarlane left Marvel, because they Marvel was very, I guess at the time, not very stingy about their illustrators, their artists, their inkers, their you know their writers and everything. And he wanted to break away from all of that. So he said, you
Yeah,
know what? I'm gonna get a handful of people who have the same mindset as him, and not be bogged down or held down like a ball and chain to a specific company or comic company. Because DC and Marvel, from the 80s, you already know, from the 60s to the 90s, man, comic books were always uh come and go. They were always
yeah,
like some years they'll be, comics will come up and they'll be, they'll be all the talk in the town, and then there'll be a few years where they're in a slump, nobody wants to buy comic books. But luckily in the 90s there was a boom in comic books again. So for Image Comics, that was pretty much created by a bunch of independent illustrators, artists, writers, inkers, all that, and that's how Image was born, and that's how Todd McFarlane's baby, or his true legacy, is Spawn. So that's why he said a lot of them didn't want to be bogged down by other companies like DC,
mm,
Marvel. I mean, Marvel and DC have always been the two big ones, but
yeah,
just that's why. There's other ones. There's other ones. There's other ones. There was like
yeah. Dark
there's different
Horse. Yeah, I know Dark Horse.
Dark
Yeah,
Horse and
because
all that.
Dark Horse is the one that does. Dark Horse is the one that does Hellboy. I know that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that there's
Yeah,
there's other independent comic companies, but I think if you look at the top four comic companies, it was definitely obviously Marvel and DC are the top two, and then it's definitely Image and Dark Horse will be the next two. But like you
oh yeah,
say, he's seen something where what I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I believe Todd McFarlane, which if people do not know what Todd looks like, this is Todd. He is the creator of not only, of course, the character Spawn and the co-creator of Image Comics, he also is the owner and operator of McFarlane Toys, which do amazing figures. Of course, it's a great opportunity for him to be able to do figures based on his own work, as we can see. My good friend, just Sci-Fi. If I can just blow this up, uh, look at that. That is one hell of a figure.
yeah.
Huge, and I'm assuming, like I've mentioned, that is a McFarlane toy figurine.
Yes, this is the Violator, and yeah, that's why you mentioned the toys, so that's why I just wanted to throw that one out there. But yeah, just like you said,
Yeah,
DC and Marvel were up there. DC and Marvel were up there. Image, actually, I could be wrong, but as far as that, I think Image, Dark Horse came out a little bit later. But
mm.
yeah, those are the top four that I can see right now. Now we have IDW, we have other comics. There's always I think it was
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
uh
IDW, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's like you said, the toys. Todd McFarlane, he really he set the bar for yeah, he may be, a lot of people, just like Anthony Jordan, if he was on there watching this,
He
he
is.
is yeah, Anthony Jordan. There you go. He is a perfectionist. Todd McFarlane is a perfectionist. He's very, very, very protective of Spawn, and I don't blame ambition. I'm not gonna be a person that's gonna, like, even if it's somebody I don't like, if somebody I don't like who's very famous, very rich or whatever, but busted their ass to get
Mm-hmm.
there, then I respect that. But I mean, as far as creating Spawn, man, you saw like Spawn, and not just that, Marvel. Dark Horse, DC, and Image. But like for me, Image hit differently than Marvel or DC, and it just Image came out with so much fresh new types of characters, and Spawn
A
led the
lot
way. You know,
darker.
Spawn is
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah, and
Mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think when it came to like the likes of, I think if when you look at say DC and you look at Marvel, you always had DC that were coming out with darker type heroes and villains. Like the Joker can be quite
Yeah,
gruesome. Batman, as you know, has a dark past. And when it came to DC, they always had like the upper hand of doing the darker comics and the darker storytelling. Where Marvel, yes, could go there, but they didn't kind of go there as much as DC for the simple fact that I think Marvel's aimed at more family oriented audiences. And obviously, if you look at the MCU now, how big it's grown, and it goes to a certain level and extent with its storytelling, but it didn't go too dark. And Image was an opportunity for them to take it to the darkest of darks in terms of storytelling. And I believe, obviously, potentially
absolutely.
that's why he created the character Spawn, so he had a hero he could go that dark with in terms of storytelling and even villains. Like if just showed a Violator there and he looks mean as hell, you wouldn't want to bump into Violator anytime soon. Put it that way.
No, exactly. And as you mentioned, Image. This is a re-release of the original number one comic issue of Spawn that was released on May. In May, it released in May 1992, and this is Spawn number one. But this is actually just a re-release. But
No.
yeah, that's when it was actually the first issue. It was the very first issue, and yeah, like you said, it was something new. It was fresh, darker, and it was an instant hit. Like Spawn was an instant hit. Like it even Spawn and other, of course, other well-known Image properties like Pit, the Max, Wildcats,
I remember the Max
Savage Dragon.
Savage
Yeah, the
Dragon. Yes.
Max and Savage Dragon, and of course the other universe of Spawn, which birthed the Violator, the Fleabiac brothers, Malbolgia, and then how Chapel, Jessica Priest, Jason Wynn, and then other enemies like there you go, the Violator, right there, the Redeemer, which is also one of my favorite uh villains slash, let's say, allies of Spawn. The Redeemer. There you go. That's the Redeemer. That's the very first Redeemer, and like that is also badass, man. Like, these images, bro. I'm telling you, man. Like I'm getting more excited and more excited, bro, about talking about Spawn, man. But yeah, it was completely something new and dark, and people like sucked it up, man. It even made Image for the 90s one of the probably the top for a while, the top comic book publishers or any kind of company. For it to rise as quick as it did, all was because Todd McFarlane said, "You know what? Let's have some independence, and let's not lock down anybody, and let's see how it goes."
Mhm.
And Image did have trouble. Like Image did have trouble with because a lot of, like you said, it was independent more than anything,
Yeah.
and it wasn't huge like it is now. It wasn't like Marvel or DC, where Marvel was like, well, you know what, Mr. McFarlane, we got plenty of other artists that are hungry. You can go ahead and go. We have plenty of artists that we can always use. But that's Marvel, man. Marvel, even at the time, that's the way it was. But it was the 90s, man. The 90s was cutthroat, just like the 80s, just like the 70s. The 90s were cutthroat. But yeah, man, it's just so it was such a breath of fresh air at the time, and I sucked it up, man. And I loved going to the 7-Eleven, man, getting nachos, getting freaking hot dogs, and first the food, then first the food, the nachos, the chips, and then like the hot dogs, and then go right to the comic book section.
Yeah, well,
And
it's
I
like a
would be
movie night,
there
isn't it?
literally.
It's like a movie night. So you had a Saturday night, finished school, you know, you had nothing to do. You would, you know, buy some snacks, sit down at home, watch a movie with the family. The same with a comic book, you know, you get your snacks, sit at home, chill out on your bed, and get reading and taking in the world that you're reading.
Yeah, and you know what was cool? The clerks already knew a lot of us, so they didn't care. We would read. I would literally read the whole comic book, and they wouldn't say nothing. They would say nothing. So they say, you know what? One guy said, well, you know what? I'd rather you read the comic book and then want to take it, and then because they
That's
would say,
true.
well, you know, back then, yeah, back then, you know, they used to be like, well, you gonna read it? Go ahead, man, take it. Because back then, I used to say, let me read it or not read all of it, and then I would say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna buy it. It was only $1.25, $1.79,
Mm.
man. I mean, a dollar
Now,
seventy-five. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm good.
a comic book now is like $2, $3, sometimes $5, $4 in the UK.
Yeah,
But as you seen, as preparing for Kate for this particular conversation we're having about Spawn, I did purchase myself my own trade paperback, my first ever Spawn comic. I just love the artwork,
sweet.
and I love the title Shadows. And I read a part of the backstory, and immediately was thought, this is a book and a story I wish to read and maybe give me some insight on what makes Spawn tick. And speaking of the Spawn story, maybe for those in myself that don't know the full story of Spawn, just give her like a little history of the character and how we became who we became.
Okay, so Spawn was born Albert Francis Simmons, and he was his father, I believe, was from Detroit, and I believe his mom was, yeah, his mom. They were working class people, and unfortunately, his mother was a devil worshiper,
Ooh.
and but they don't go too deep. They didn't go too deep on his family, you know. But as far as Al, they call him Albert Francis Al Simmons, and he graduated high school, you know, went to the military, was very decorated as in the Marine Corps, and then he like I said, well decorated, and then he got hired by the CIA, but also did other types of work before before transferring to the CIA, and yeah, Secret Service, and Secret Service, Force Renaissance, the yeah, and the U.S. Marine Corps. So yeah, he's very well decorated, but once he worked for the CIA, he became a, you know, pretty much an assassin. And you know, even though like anybody who works espionage stuff like that, you know, they're doing it for the country, but unfortunately his kill count was very, very high. And I guess his employer at the time, Jason Wynn, was, you know, very powerful person, you know, controlling everything, was all about money, ruthless, cunning, and Al Simmons started to become more fed up with what he was doing, and he wanted to be more. He was becoming more about mortality, and wanting to be a better person. And something happened where Jason Wynn made a deal with Malbolgia, or I don't know if it was Malbolgia or if it was actually Clown the Violator, and wanting to learn. There you go, wanting to learn more about this thing that he was in, that Wynn was interested in, called necroplasm. And necroplasm is only in that universe, comes from hell. but you
Oh.
can. There's a lot of uses for it. There's a lot of uses for it in, of course, in the comic books. A lot of use
Hmm.
for it in modern times. Especially in what does a guy with more power want? Just like Lex Luthor, Jason
It's
Wynn
just
wants nothing but
all about
power.
his ego, isn't it? And power and having absolute control of everything.
Yeah, and to make a long story short, Al was he was unfortunately set up, and he was killed because he just wanted to change his life, wanted to be a better person, and making that deal. Well, it says, well, you know what? Why don't we send? I guess with Jason Wynn made the deal. It's like, well, you know what? We want Al Simmons. The forces of hell, Malbolgia, and the Eighth Spear of Hell they want Al Simmons, and they want him to, use him, recruit him as to become a lieutenant or general in Malbolgia's army of Hellspawn, and that's how he things were exchanged. So he was killed by a friend of his that was also in special forces named Chapel, and the guy's also pretty much a lunatic. He was not all there, a lot of PTSD, but back then in the comics they didn't, they were just that's what they use, that's what they love doing, so they did it. But it just sucks that it was his own friend
Hmm.
that whacked him and killed him. But uh it's I'm just gonna reference this, like I said, to not to take too long in lagging it on. In the film, it was actually I don't know why they took out the chapel part of the assassination, but actually they switched the characters from Chapel to Jessica Priest, who was the one that actually killed Al Simmons. And then once he's killed, he is sent to hell, and
Hmm.
then he makes the deal with Malbolgia. Well, you know what? I'll do anything to go back. I'll do anything for my wife. And this is where we step into the world of Al Simmons, his life before he became Spawn, and he had a girlfriend, or not a girlfriend, a wife named um, Wanda Blake, and he also had a good friend at that time named Terry Fitzgerald. And like I said, we'll go on along with that. But
Hmm.
once Al Simmons is sent to hell, he becomes a hell spawn, makes a deal with Malbolgia. I'll do anything to see my wife again. Then he's pushed. Then he's pushed back, sent back to the living, but I believe 5 years had passed. All of his memories wiped. The only thing he remembers is Wanda Blake,
Oh yeah.
and he's still trying to pick up the pieces and find out more about what he doesn't remember. And then enter the Violator, aka Clown, a small 3 foot clown, balding, overweight, has face paint of an M on his face. There you go. John
That's the
Leguizamo did a
movie
great job.
version, but he was totally unrecognizable, I mean, in this movie. And I think
Yes,
I
exactly.
guarantee you, when it was announced he was cast as Clown, I bet you there was a bit of backlash. But when you actually seen the performance he delivered as the character, he made, you know, he proved everyone how much of a great actor he is. But like you
Oh,
say, that
absolutely.
that is the Spawn movie poster, and like I did watch the movie Spawn, and I thought it was very good. I enjoyed the character. I enjoyed what they did with the movie. Uh, as a fan of the character and a fan of the overall story, do you think the movie was a faithful adaptation?
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely think it was. It was basically, in my opinion, it was made for the fans by the creator. And even though McFarlane was just an executive producer, they kept it, as much as the movie wasn't successful in a lot of people's eyes, it did stay somewhat, mostly to me, in my opinion, faithful to the comic,
Mm, good.
like it
Good.
did. I mean, and, yeah, it fade, yeah. And then I just wanted to let you know here that Chapel, his friend and partner was, his name was Bruce Stenson.
Hmm.
His name was Bruce Stenson, and it's just it's kind of sad to know that you you're betrayed by a friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're betrayed by a friend, and yeah, man, it just sucks. But yeah, it the film though did stay as faithful as I believe it could. Like, and here's the Blu-ray of it. I haven't
Yeah.
even opened it because I have it on DVD.
Hmm.
But yeah, it stayed. I mean, it was great, man. Like, for its time,
Hmm.
it hasn't aged well. Obviously, it has not aged well as
Hmm.
far as the CGI, the special effects. But as far as the practical stuff, the suit and everything, I thought it was spot on.
Yeah.
When you're a huge fan and you watch the movie, I believe I saw the movie in theaters. We don't care at the time. Now we think about it, we're older, but yeah, man, I thought it was great. John Leguizamo, man, as clown, as a clown slash violator, it was just, he did an outstanding job, man. But no, yeah, just that's just pretty much the backstory on Al Simmons, and how he just had the. We'll get to the movie a little bit later on, but
Hmm.
yeah, he came back to the living. Um, didn't know where the hell he was. He ended up taking shelter in a place called Rat City, and he was approached by an older man known as Cagliostro, and from there it's been a whirlwind of him trying to find out what the hell happened, why he remembers Wanda, why he remembers his wife, and then but why he can't remember anything else.
Mm.
And yeah, man, so far that's pretty much just the backstory. And then there's the clown. The clown, the violator, is basically just like a babysitter, because the babysitter and just to make sure that violator is the one that trains Hellspawn. He's the one that gets them ready to become a part of Malbolgia's army of Hellspawn.
Mm. I remember in the film, like his interaction with Al Simmons, and he's just grotesque, isn't he? The clown, he's just horrendous.
Yeah,
He's eating out of garbage bins, and he's like sexually, he's very like, I remember that scene where he's like being dirty and all that stuff. He was just a vile character, but that's why I love to hate him. How he
yeah.
was grotesque, but then even though he's that way, he's also extremely intelligent and he knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Violator, the clown. Well, you can't. It's kind of the same, clown and violator. It's kind of the same thing, but um, he plays into that as a character. He plays into that very, very easily. You know what?
Mhm.
He's a demon. He's literally a demon of. He's the oldest of the Fleabag brothers, and Fleabag. Sorry, the Fleabag brothers, and the Violators. They call Violator Spawn's arch nemesis for a reason, because he's the
Mm.
most um, consistent enemy and antagonist. And even in the film, man, even though the film wasn't that great, he played that part to a T, man. It was amazing. And even Charlie Sheen did well. The lady that played the girl that played Jessica Priest, all of that was greatly done. Um, but I mean, it's like you said, it was a good interpretation of a comic where they try to keep their best to keep it to a source
Was
material.
it
But
was it not
when
Martin
what?
Sheen? Was it Martin Sheen?
Yes,
Charlie
yeah, sorry. Yeah, did I say
Charlie
Charlie? I
Sheen.
said Charlie. My bad. Yeah, Martin
Yeah.
Sheen. Yeah, my bad. My bad. Yeah, yeah, Martin Sheen. It was Martin Sheen.
Because he plays the guy who you mentioned before, who's like, he was wanting to like get all the power, he wanted to like, conquer it
Jason
all.
Wynn. Yeah.
Yeah, you played the Jason Wynn character, and I thought he did a really good job. I don't know if you noticed, but our boy is watching. Hello, my brother. Hello.
So Jedi
Yeah.
Graham Bell, my brother from another mother.
Yes, also Mr.
And
Jake Hall is watching.
sup,
Hello,
Jake?
Jake.
Sup?
Yes. Sensei Red Dragon, Red Spirit is watching. And
What's up, Red Spirit?
of course, we have our
Yep.
boy Anthony is watching. And Sensei Red Spirit is mentioned Gunslinger Spawn.
Yes. I am so tempted. Red Spirit? I'm so tempted of getting the figure, and it's not expensive, man. It's pretty affordable, but I just have so many, man. And like I'm more. I mean, I want Gunslinger Spawn because Gunslinger Spawn is badass, dude. If you ever read more comics book, Gunslinger Spawn is badass. All of the Scorched, what do you call it? She Spawn, the Redeemer. I think who else? Medieval Spawn, and I think Haunt. I think Haunt might become part of the Scorched. Oh, um, I think Monolith might become part of the Scorch, but yeah, Gunslinger. To let you know, Kevin, Gunslinger is actually more of a modern. He's more of a modern take on another Hellspawn.
Oh, cool. So is it not Al Simmons in that one?
It's not Al Simmons like that. That's
Mm.
why I have to do more research. But Gunslinger Spawn is actually a spawn that came from I think Red Spirit can
So,
let me know.
so,
But yeah, Gunslinger is more of a modern take. I have to do more research on him. But as far as like yeah, there's different variants. I forgot his name, but he comes from
so,
the 1800s.
so, in a way, is it a bit like how you've got, like within the world of Spider-Man? You've got different versions of the
Yeah,
symbiote and different versions of Venom. So, is the different
yeah,
versions or different Hellspawn characters? But they all get like
yes,
spawn at the
yes,
end, like you mentioned. You mentioned there was a she spawn,
yeah,
Gunslinger
yeah. There's yeah,
Spawn, and Spawn,
uh-huh.
who was Alison. Who is King Spawn? I've seen a King Spawn.
King Spawn. I believe is Al Simmons, but that's a version where he embraced being. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I believe that King Spawn is still Al Simmons, but he just embraced the true Hellspawn um like mindset and took over I think the Ace Spear of Hell.
Oh,
But I
cool.
could be wrong, but yeah. But it's like me, I'm more me, I'm more of the retro. I love the retro
Mhm.
types of Spawn. Al Simmons to me is the only Spawn that I really know, but yes, there are different types. She Spawn is actually Jessica Priest. Jessica Priest
Oh,
becomes the She Spawn. And then
oh.
Gunslinger Spawn is different. Medieval Spawn is I think the first one was Sir John of York,
Mm.
and yeah, his name, yeah, Sir John of York. And then there's also Plague Spawn, and there's also Omega Spawn,
Oh,
and
wow.
so yeah, there's a lot of. It's not a multiverse. It's just they're different. They're different people, but they became
Spawns of
Hellspawn
hell.
also.
Or hell spawns, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I think that's a great
Yeah,
concept because it means technically you'll always have a spawn. You'll always have like
yeah,
some version of a spawn, a hell spawn around. And it's also a
yeah,
great way to do different variations of of a hell spawn in different centuries or different aspects, or like you say gunslinger spawn. Like I say, I've never read the comic. I'm learning as I go, thanks to you and the people watching. It sounds like it's set in the Wild West days. Medieval spawn, like you mentioned, is probably during the King Arthur period. And I think you said
yeah.
Omega spawn.
Yes, Omega Spawn. Omega Spawn actually was around even when Malbolgia, even before Al Simmons was even thought of, and Omega Spawn was actually trying to take over Barbosa so he could take over of the eighth spear of hell.
Oh,
So, and I don't know much about Omega Spawn. I just know that he's an enormous, like, giant style of spawns, very powerful. And but yeah, there's so many different like ways they can go with it. But yeah, there's Omega Spawn, King Spawn, uh, Spawn Al Simmons, and then there's Gunslinger, She Spawn, um, Medieval Spawn. There's even Ninja Spawn,
Ninja
and like
Spawn.
yeah. There's Ninja Spawn, and then there's Raven Spawn. There's Raven Spawn. So like there's a lot. Like Raven Spawn, I could tell you is that's actually I forgot his name. I think it was I forgot his man. So like I said, there's so many spawns, but I think it's Cravon Gore. I think Cravon Gore. He's actually one of Malbolgia's Death Knights. So that's but yeah, bro. Like I said, I can go on about certain things, but yeah, but I was gonna tell you, man. I forgot to mention. We cannot forget to talk about what we really love. And I don't know when you saw it was the animated series, the HBO animated series of Spawn.
Like I say, I don't know much about Spawn, but my brother absolutely loved the Spawn animated series. In fact, I think he had all volumes of the animated show on VHS. He loved it that much. So I knew tiny bits of exactly there, definitely the covers that he had on his VHSs. So he definitely had them on VHS. And he loved it, and I think obviously he would have went to see the movie when it came out. So like you say, the
Yeah,
series came out in the 90s alongside like when the movie came out, because Spawn just suddenly just got really big and really
yeah,
kind
oh
of
yeah,
like came into its own and had its own kind of unique cult type fan base. And of course, studios would have seen, they do the research to look and see what's popular, they look and see what's upcoming in pop culture, and they would have been like, you know what, this character Spawn's really taken off. We need to be the first one to capitalize on its success or its popularity. And of course, the studios would have went out and tried to get the license. So tell us, since you are in the know, about how the animated series came about and what made it so popular.
The animated series I think was a hold on, let me just show this one up. This is the only real Spawn that I'm like really like a note. Like I really love the modern, not the modern, the retro style of Spawn in a little
Yeah.
throne of trash. But yeah, the animated series, I think that was a long shot. I think that was a long shot that came out in HBO during the 90s. And that one, I think they just wanted to do it because it was cheaper back then to do animated films.
Mhm.
So it was cheaper to do animated films before they wanted to go with the movie.
Can you remember
And
what year it came out? Like, was it? Because I know, for
I,
example, Batman the animated series came out like in 1992 after Batman Returns the movie, and I generally feel like when I look at a lot of the dark animation, and I think
yes,
was it Keith? It was Keith somebody voiced Spawn. Am I right?
Keith David.
Keith David, yeah. He also voiced Goliath in the Gargoyle series. And I
Yeah,
always remember hearing that voice and was just totally like, whoa, this is absolutely amazing.
yeah, yeah.
And
It came out around the same. It came out in 1997. The animated series was created. What's up? Criteria 5 will make, and that one also came out in 1997, and it went 3 seasons.
yeah,
and yeah, 3 seasons, and they only went 3 seasons, and it was canceled.
Mm.
But yeah, as
The
far as I know with
animation,
that, yeah,
though,
Keith David
the
was
animation I remember was really good, and I do think the animation was kind of inspired by like a mixture of what um, Warner Brothers did with the Batman series, and of course what Marvel did with like the animated Spider-Man '90s show and all of that. I think it was a
yeah,
mixture of all of the different animation styles.
yeah. It was it, the animation was not only great, but Todd McFarlane had a really big role in this one. Like he was even the narrator. He
Mm,
was even the narrator when every time an episode would start, he would give his 2 cents, saying about okay, well, he would like speak in riddles and give you a little insights on what before the episode would show or when it would have come on, and like that was totally 90s, man, when when the creators giving info and giving little hints at oh, well, why did Fitzgerald go after Wanda when they know that Al was dead. Why did they do this? That's what I liked about it, and he had a big role in especially in the animated series. I mean, I think he actually did the most of the animation. So,
mm.
but it's yeah, dude.
Like you see, he's very hands-on. He's very protective of his character, which doesn't surprise me. It's like Mike Minola with Hellboy. He's very protective of his character, and like you say, even though the new Hellboy film that has not long been released, Hellboy and the Crooked Man, which is one of my favorite stories within the Hellboy lore. Even though the film, didn't really get a theatrical release, I think it only got released in two places in the world. I think one was like, I don't know if it was something like Scandinavia or even Romania, because I know it was filmed over there. And then the second place it got a theatrical limited release was the UK in England, but I just didn't get time to see it in theaters. And it was released in um, on streaming, but I do know Mike Minola, whether it was huge or successful, he was very pleased with the outcome of the movie. He actually kind of executive produced it, co-wrote the movie. It's more true to what his vision of the Hellboy character is, even though everyone will probably look at, of course, the Ron Perlman version and go, that's the definitive version of Hellboy. But and he does an amazing Hellboy. But there's certain elements of that movie, even though I enjoy it and have it. I even bought it on 4K the other day because I really wanted it. And I love Ron Perlman, but this I just wish it went a little bit darker because the comic is
Yeah.
very much like Spawn, more dark in tone. There's a lot of gore horror in the comic book of Hellboy, so it would be nice to see these kind of elements play out in the movies based on the characters that they're doing them on. But it's like studios are frightened to take the risk to take these characters to a certain level and take them too dark because they want to not just cater to the general fans of a character or a comic book. They want to appeal to the genuine general audience as well as, try and whip in the fans. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
No, yeah, no, exactly, and it's because remember back then HBO always took risks.
Mm-hmm.
Like HBO did not, they weren't afraid of taking risks. I mean, now HBO's only on streaming now, but back then when it was actually the home, what do you call it, the home box office,
Yeah.
company, or like anything television company, they took risks because in the 90s and even the early 90s and even since the 80s, 70s, they took risks on stuff like that because if they see something they like, they're going to take a risk on it. And
Yeah.
back then, like I said, animation was cheaper to do. Voiceover was cheaper to do, and Keith. This was one in the beginning where Keith David, not only with Gargoyles, but this is where Keith David started getting noticed as not only was he a great actual stage actor, movie actor, he was also great as voiceover actor.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he started taking it to the next level, and how HBO started it, and it was everything was created by not every it was created Spawn, the anime series, was created by Todd McFarlane, but the development was by Alan B. McElroy, and they had a bunch of, actually the only one that I think was well known was Keith David, as when he was the voice actor, because a lot of people here, like, I have no idea, but like the music and everything was great. Todd McFarlane again was an executive producer, and there was also producers Catherine Winder, and the production company was actually HBO. So, and HBO, like I said, took risks. I mean, that's what I liked about it. And not only that, but with how Spawn the animated series it was very dark, man. Like freaking curse words, sex, um, what do you call it, alcohol, tobacco, uh, it didn't care, man. They went all in on that, and
I think
it was great TV.
yeah, and I think another show that very much like Spawn, which there had never probably been an animated show that took a lot of risk unless it was anime from Japan, like
Yeah,
like a Western North American show that was willing to take them kind of risks. The closest I've seen of the show to do that since Spawn is the Invincible show on Amazon Prime, which is also based, I believe, on a upcoming cult kind of popular comic book. Which I watched the first season of Invincible. I was fully impressed by it. Was fully impressed with how they weren't frightened to take risks in the violence and the swearing and the character development and talking about sex. In the Spawn animated show for an adult, this is before you had like shows, channels like Adult Swim that would show like all
yeah,
the featured, like animated shows that were aimed at young adults or adults. Uh, this, Spawn was right at the forefront with HBO of doing that back in the 90s.
yeah, yeah. It was, and like I said, HBO wasn't afraid. Just like I guess you can't really. What's up, Anubis? I guess you can't really. Maybe you can say that Amazon is willing to take risks because they've already had a few. They've already had a few shows that have crashed and burned, but it's like they're not afraid to try things. And now, like with Invincible, I still I've only seen 2 episodes. I need to finish it up, but you're right. Like they're the only ones, I think. This is just my opinion. Excuse me. Too much Dr. Pepper. Excuse me. It's like what do you call it? It's just like HBO, and now, like you said, Adult Swim, like they took it, but HBO, like they took it to a whole other level, man. And with Spawn, like it was fresh. It was like people sucked it up. I mean, it went 3 seasons. Surprising for me, going 3 seasons is that's pretty long for something in the 90s as it was. But like anything in the 90s, stuff fizzles out. Anything like that will fizzle out.
Well, if you also know as well, back in the 90s, hand-drawn animation was quite expensive to make. So obviously, it's like Batman the animated series, which is still talked about today. That only technically went It went the first 2 seasons were like the animated series, and then they changed it up to like Batman and Robin, and they changed kind of the look and the designs of the characters, and then they did the Superman series, and they did the Justice League series, and they kept on cancelling or just doing reiterations of the same characters over and over again. I do remember years ago, like we'll go back to Disney. I know when like they started, in the early 90s, I think it was 1989, the original animated Little Mermaid movie came out. And once that movie hit, that was like the renaissance of that hand-drawn animation by Disney, and they had hit after hit up to see, I would say, Hercules. But each
Yeah.
film that they made took 2 to 3 years to produce and create because of the hand-drawn technique. And then I think it was 1995, the first Toy Story was released, which was the first ever, computer generated animated movie. And then hand drawn animation slowly became obsolete. And I do see a lot of new, like, hand drawn animated shows coming out, but they don't look and they don't feel the same, because I still think, even though they look hand drawn, I still think there's a lot of computer work that goes into it. I think the
Yeah.
users still use computers to do the hand drawn animation. But for me, I'll always love the traditional way that they did animation. I think it still looks classic. It still looks great, and wish that they would bring it back.
Yeah. No, exactly, man. And like I said, we're retro. We're very retro. Yeah, we like a lot of the newer, modern types of anime, especially a good example, Blue Eye Samurai,
Yeah,
Record of Ragnarok. There's a bunch of great
Castlevania.
anime, Castlevania, and Castlevania is kind of like one of the closest you can actually compare. And if Anthony's still watching, you can compare, or even Big Bad Wolf, you can actually compare the new Castlevania to
I agree.
like a back then the 90s Berserk or stuff like that, or how Spawn was. But
Mhm.
yeah,
There's
it's just I think. Go ahead.
there's a I haven't watched it, but I've been intrigued by it. I have seen an animated show with a caveman and a dinosaur. I think it's called Primal or Prime.
Yes,
I haven't watched it, but
that's a great show.
it looks really interesting.
That's great. Watch it, my brother. I watched the whole thing. I watched the whole. What's up, Alvin? I watched the whole all seasons of Primal, and dude, it's fantastic, man. We got to talk about that's one I got to talk about too, man.
Mm,
That's a great show. But like just to get back to what you're talking about as far as the animation, you all, I don't know if you've seen it, but a lot anybody who's on here has seen the anime, the old school anime Ghost in the Shell. And Ghost in the Shell started using kind of started adding some like computer generated images
mm,
into animation.
mm-hmm.
And I can't really say, but I think, I mean, if I would have, I should have done more research on it, but I think that Spawn, the animated series, did use some computer generated, did have some computer generated assistance. And it's like, because it was 97, and 97 was, it was booming. And that's when, more computer generated, it was still at its infancy, the computer generated stuff when it came into animation. But yeah, like I miss that type of
Mm.
animation, man. And I mean, it's just it was great television, man, for the time. And you did say that it was very expensive. I think, what, it probably was expensive. I don't think it's expensive back then in the 90s. I don't think it was that
Mm.
expensive. But depending on, I don't think it was as expensive as actually making a live action movie.
Oh,
But
no, but
uh,
it's not. But it still costs thousands or millions. Like, I'm sure
yeah,
something like, I think, like, and for each time they did one, the price went up, because the way in advancing on the animated hand drawn technology to try and improve it. So if you look, for example, at Beauty and the Beast compared to the Little
oh yeah,
Mermaid, you can see the improvements in the animation. In fact, didn't they re-release that, the little Beauty and the Beast, where they did the ballroom scene and they had the animated
yeah,
car,
yeah,
but they made the ballroom computered. So they
yeah.
did do, like,
Oh,
were experimenting with certain elements, and even Aladdin with the magic carpet in Aladdin, they used, I think, computer effects on certain scenes with the magic carpet because they were trying to improve on the animation, and for every time they did like an improvement, the cost for each movie went up.
Oh yeah.
But of
Oh
course,
yeah.
it's not.
I agree. I agree.
It's nothing like today's cinema where you can get a movie like on Netflix, which is just a streaming movie, and they spend 300 million on Electric State. But it was just, it was just an empty shell of a movie, in my opinion. But then you can get a movie that uses great animation, but an amazing story, like Godzilla -1, that will cost, only like something like 10 to 50 million to make. So sometimes it's not about the budget, but the storytelling and the people behind the movie or a show that makes it successful.
And you have a good point. That's why Spawn was so successful, because it was a good story that's based off of a comic book. Todd McFarlane may have a lot of haters, man, and may sometimes seem a little, like Anthony said, a little more very not obsessive, but just like very picky and very obsessed about or obsessed with his own. I can't say obsessed, man. What's that freaking word? Anthony will mention it right now, but it's like he's a perfectionist. There you go.
He did mention a perfectionist.
Like he, that's why like I would understand why somebody would be like that. But that's when in the 90s, bro, that's what I'm saying. That's when stuff was great.
There you go.
There you go. Nothing wrong with being a perfectionist, but it's to his own detriment. Yeah.
Detriment is timed. So detriment, so basically he's that obsessed with making sure his characters or his work or is done, like you say, to perfection, that it sometimes can be a detriment where it actually holds stuff back. And it's actually, how many years, for example, has the Spawn reboot been in development? Like Jamie Foxx was meant to be playing in the reboot. First and foremost, I like Jamie Foxx, but can I see him at Spawn? Not really. I don't think I can't see him as Spawn, but maybe he'll surprise me, because it's like what we said. We never thought the guy who played, I forgot his name, who played Clang would be so good.
Michael J. White.
Yeah.
John Leguizamo.
Yeah. And let's face it, I wasn't a fan when they announced Robert Pattinson as Batman in The Batman, but he's not like my favourite of the Batman, but I don't think he's bad either. So maybe if the Spawn reboot goes ahead, maybe we'll be surprised. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I mean, it's gonna take a while with everything, what everybody has been saying. Jamie Foxx being connected to it, Todd McFarlane trying to find. I heard it was connected to Blumhouse, but
Blumhouse, I believe, all involved. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, and then we all know what kind of movies that are connected to Blumhouse been coming out, man, and
Night Swim.
It's
fucking shit.
I mean, you see, and I don't want this to be shit. I do not want Spawn to be shit. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's just like you can never be. The only way we can relive the 90s, like the Spawn animated series, even the movie, dude. Like it did not age well. Could have been better, but I mean, it was successful as bringing in people into the seats, but a lot of people didn't like the movie. Michael J. White, to me, was Michael J. White, John Leguizamo, and Martin Sheen, and even the actor that played Cagliostro, or even the actress that played Wanda Blake, dude. All of that was great, But I mean, I understand the faults and why people thought it was, kind of a crap movie. But I'm a huge fan, man. So you can always trust Blumhouse to ruin things. At least they're consistent at screwing up, and consistent nonetheless. Bro,
I'm calling it now. Spawn 2 Spawn, the reboot, is going to be the sequel to Night Swim.
Oh no, man! Don't
Which, if
jinx it
that,
like that, brother. Don't jinx it like
honestly,
that.
if it was somebody like Neon or A24, two young upcoming studios that have been killing it in terms of really creative content, I'd be over the moon. Because the thing with Neon and um, A24, they create movies that are on a medium budget that are focused more on story than creating big spectacles. So if you look at the reputation of A24, they did Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was an original story that was different and unique. And Neon, they've done well. They did, I think Neon did The Monkey that came out. That was quite an interesting movie, which was like a horror comedy. So I've got more faith in them because when I look at Blumhouse, I see them as like the Disney of horror. They started off as a low budget company that made a killing and made a big splash, but now they're all about profit and they're all about trying to get butts in seats rather than telling a good story. And half the films now are just empty and just don't entertain us.
I mean, it's true, and man, what I wouldn't give to have Robert Eggers direct a Spawn movie. Like like after seeing Nosferatu, and I don't know what you thought of Nosferatu, the newest one, man, but I was crazy surprised.
So I'm a
Like,
huge fan of vampires, a huge fan of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, as you all know. Uh, love it. And when I first seen the two trailers for Nosferatu, I was all for it because I absolutely love Robert Eggers' style, his cinematography, his work that he produces. But when I actually went to see the movie, I'll be honest, I liked Nosferatu, but I didn't love it. It felt great, it looked great, it was so unique, so different, but I just felt like there was something missing. And I agree with a lot of the critics when they said there were pacing issues. And the pacing issues for me come from they were trying to tell the story of Count Orlok and
yeah,
you know Ellie. I think her name was Ellie, the wife, and then of course the
Ellen,
husband,
yeah,
Ellen, and the
Thomas.
husband in Thomas's story. But then they focused on the character that was played by Aaron Taylor Johnson and his wife, and I felt like it took away from the main focus, which should have just been them three. And even though I understand the reasoning behind why they didn't show a lot of Count Orlok, I feel as if they generally didn't because it was, even though he was unrecognizable, it was Bill Skarsgård. And I think generally I feel as if um, they should have had more Orlok scenes. And there is like a director's cut version out if you buy the 4K and the Blu-ray. So I'm hoping they're going to have more added scenes with Orlok because I just think we needed more of him on screen. But every time he did come on scene, it was more the voice than the actual appearance of him. But his voice was so amazing. Bill Skarsgård just did a fantastic job. But that's just my opinion.
Well, no, well, that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't. It didn't blow my mind. Like Nosferatu didn't blow my mind, but it kept me interested because this. I thought the story. Oh yeah, dude. The pace. It's a slow burn. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's true. It's a slow burn. But what I did like the most is Bill Skarsgård's character.
Yes.
Like that yeah, that for me was the favorite part. Yeah, Lily Rose Depp did pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, all of them did good. All of them did good. I forgot the guy that played Thomas, but he's also very good. But I just thought
Nicholas Hoult.
it didn't blow it. Yeah, Nicholas Hoult. It didn't blow my mind, but it to me it was a decent, good film.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it was good, but it wasn't like, yeah, it wasn't like, oh, like a lot of people,
Yeah,
I heard
I
about
still,
critics, but some people like
I
it as a
still
horror movie.
prefer the first reboot, which is the 1979 one. I think it's
Yeah,
just the
that one.
music, the tone, and the feel and the look of that one. Just, but mind some of the cinematography in this one, like, and I love that scene where he climbs up the cliff top and he goes to go to Count Orlok's castle and he's just walking through the treed forest area and it's snowing and the next thing you know you see the carriage coming towards him and there's that just the shot staring down at him just breathtaking. You are truly creeped out or truly just captivated, and it's definitely one of them films you've got to see in theatre. So I did glad I saw it in theatres. So the
And that's why I
cinematography is
wanted to. No, but I no, you're right, and like I mean that's what I'm saying. Like, but like I did like I do like his style, Robert Eggers' style of of how he did Nosferatu, but also take it kind of that style like it was from the Northman, but
mm-hmm,
add that into like a Spawn like movie with Rat City, the way I would think he would make Rat City, how he would make New York,
mm-hmm,
how he would add the story of hell with Malbolgia, with the Violator. Like I just think, I mean, it's wishful. It's very wishful thinking, but I
mm-hmm.
would love to see his style with, I would just like how he would implement his style of filmmaking into a Spawn film,
Mm.
like adding Malbolgia, the Violator, uh, you know, the all of the major characters in Spawn. That's just my opinion, but yeah, that's why I brought it up because I just like that the way he does that
Yeah.
style,
If
especially a
they're gonna
medieval type.
do it for the cult fans and like make it a film for the fans, and that, yeah, 100%. But I think if they want to try and pull in a general audience, I think they should get somebody like Guillermo del Toro to do it. Who I know he's already on
Yeah,
Hellboy. They're very similar, but
yeah,
his way he creates his worlds and his characters would work well for Spawn. And I guess
another great
even
one.
though they wouldn't go too dark like they do, like you would expect them to do with Spawn, if they want to try and pull in a general audience, not just the cult fan audience, he would be somebody I would recommend.
Absolutely,
Mm,
absolutely, brother.
yeah. So now, since we've brought it up, you said you wanted to talk about the movie, like the original movie. So tell us, like you say, how you felt about the movie and like you see, you've already mentioned you do feel like it was you know, a fearful adaptation of the original work
Comic,
within the comic.
yeah. Oh, I mean, it's dude. I can. It's what I like about it. It's like we just mentioned. It stays. The majority of it stays, in my opinion, stays faithful to the comic. The way he's killed, the way he enters into the eighth spear of hell, how he's introduced to Malbolgia, and even Michael Jai White being a young guy, he was a good actor. I don't know if I don't. I think that was his. I don't know if that was his breakout or if he did Tyson before that. I don't know, but yeah, he was to me perfect for the part. Martin Sheen, you can't go wrong with Martin Sheen being an antagonist,
Yeah,
man. I mean, you can't. And then
I like I like
John
I,
Leguizamo.
I liked Mike
What?
Martin Sheen in it because he might not look like, I guess, the character. Like I say, I've never read the comic book, so I don't know if he looks like the character version in the comic book, but as a character actor in the film, I thought he did a great job. He was just a slimy little prick that you wanted to see get his comeuppance.
No, yeah. And there's so many parts, man. Like the visual effects, even the time where, even though for their time, for 1990, I think it was released in 98 or 97 too. I think I gotta check. But I think it was released in 98, but or 97. I might be wrong, but it's 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 a great they tried their best, man. They tried their best with what they had, and Michael Jai White did great as Al Simmons and Spawn, and everybody who was into the cast was great. But I think I gotta say this: um, we all know how the story is. We know the movie's kind of off as far as pacing, and you know it's out there too, man. It's out there, like especially with I don't care what anybody says, man. John Leguizamo as the clown or Violator, man. Is there you go, Gojira, there you go. Um, J- John Leguizamo as clown as a Violator, bro. He freaking boom, like just hit it out the park, bro. Even when he added his own style, it was just freaking it was great, dude. Like he kind of stole the show, um, but didn't take too much away from Al Simmons from Michael Jai White's character, and then everybody else who was added, man. Like it's, I mean, and then Wanda, the girl, the actress that played Wanda, I forgot her name too, but I just know that everything was good, man. But as far as the movie, it's fast paced. The way they show his chains, the way he floats, like when he falls down, he starts learning about how the necroplasm works, and it starts thinking for its own, like it goes into survival mode. If he's falling off a building, it's going to start the cape starts to unravel itself and starts gliding in the air, and
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
like
those,
them shots. I like the shots where the cape was it's like an entity of its own. Like the way when he
yeah,
jumps off buildings and he kind of the cape carries him in many ways across the city, and then obviously he's got it. Reminds like the core Spawn character. Well, for me, was like a mixture of like say Batman meets like Hellraiser because he's got the long chains that come out of his
yeah.
body, and he's got like greenish flames, and it's just such a unique looking character. And like, actually, I want to show you this because I found this image and I absolutely fell in love with it.
Oh yeah, like
Like, like
that's
I'm
yeah.
just gonna show some of these images that I
No, it's
found.
fine. That's fine. That's
Like,
that's great
is
too.
can you see why I like this image the most? He's got cats.
Yeah, because yeah, I
I've got
barely
three
noticed them.
cats,
I just barely noticed them.
and he's got
Yeah, I barely
cats.
noticed them. I How many are there? Is there two cats? That's a nice one.
Yeah. Which one? Oh, let's go back. He's got. Oh no, that's the other one. He has. I can see one on the top of the throne and one like on his arm. So he's got two. I
Yeah,
can
there's one
see.
there. There. I'm trying to see if there's another one. I don't think there's one in the background. No,
So
I think there's only those two.
if I didn't like Spawn before, I love him now. He's a fan of cats.
Yep, he really likes that pussy.
And now, who is this character?
Oh, that's Billy Kincaid. He's one of those image comic villain characters that you'll despise because he's a child murderer. He's a
Mm.
pedophile child murderer. Yeah, he's a pedophile child murderer. You wouldn't like him, man. He's been killed. Um, Spawn killed him in a very brutal way. I'll just say this: like in one of the comics, he killed Billy Kincaid, knowing that he was a child murderer, and he actually tried to abduct Wanda Blake, and Terry Fitzgerald's daughter. Her name is Cyan. He did kidnap her, but when Spawn found him and did his thing, a sick bastard. That's who. Yep, Spawn gets him real good. Yep, Spawn literally kills him with, I think with those snow cone sticks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know those snow cone sticks.
Oh
He
yes.
kills. Well, first he kills him. He strangles him, and then he puts a bunch of those popsicle sticks in his body. But what he does, the craziest thing is that he leaves a note saying He made boys scream, he made girls scream, so I made him scream and scream and scream.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. I like that. If I could have found an image with that, I would have loved it. I do have a question for you, Century,
Yeah.
of Ulven.
Mhm.
So here we go.
Where do you think it would have gone, Century, had the movie been successful and good enough for a sequel, Century? Alvin, my man, I think they would have they would have done a trilogy.
Hmm. I agree.
Yep.
Like you see, I look at you see, you've got the big mainstream superheroes and villains, and like no one's going to beat DC or Marvel in terms of popularity, especially because of how well their cinematic. Well, maybe not DC, but the cinematic universes went for Marvel. One thing I love about these two particular characters in Hellboy and Spawn is, for me, they're heroes for adults, where I feel
Yeah.
as if the MCU's heroes for young adults and kids. Obviously, adults still love like your Thor and your Captain America, your Iron Man, but for me, these aren't, these aren't just your average heroes. These are badass. You could even say in many ways they're also anti-heroes. They're not like, they don't
Yep.
follow a certain set of rules. They don't follow laws. They don't, they do their own thing in their own way. And sometimes the things they have to do are violent and dangerous, and not everyone's gonna like it. And I look at, like, if I can think of an MCU character or a Marvel character that's like that, it would be the Punisher. I think the Punisher
Yep.
was probably the closest thing you're going to get to like a Spawn or a Hellboy. I don't know if there's anybody else, but he's the first one that comes to my mind, uh, who
Yep.
is like that, who could probably go to those extremes to get justice done. So,
No, exactly. And yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. No, I was just gonna say.
no,
No, you're right. Spawn is considered an anti-hero. Like Spawn is a 100% an
Ghost Rider.
anti-hero. Like, yeah, Ghost Rider, Ghost Rider, and imagine Ghost Rider and Spawn in one comic. Like that'd be like, I mean, it would be crazy for Spawn, but I mean, no, you're right. Like they're total anti-heroes, man. I think Frank Castle, had they would have done, like, say, another crossover between Image and Marvel, I think Frank Castle wouldn't mind Spawn at all. I'd be like, man,
Hmm.
you kill perpetrators and you kill evil people brutally. Like Spawn kills them brutally. Like he doesn't have no limits, doesn't care. And like I said, what he did to Billy Kincaid, man, like that was like, if Spawn will make you suffer, if he knows how bad you've done, he will make you suffer. And the fact that that's a great thing that you brought up. Like he's total anti-hero, and that's why people gravitated to him. And when I first saw him, I thought he was just a wizard that could do all kinds of stuff, but he has so many abilities as a Hellspawn. And even now that Gojira was watching, he did a crossover with Batman. So Spawn did a
Yeah,
crossover with Batman.
yeah. There's a character that they created for the Batman animated series many years ago called the Phantasm, and I see visions of the
Yeah,
Phantasm
fantastic.
in Spawn. So I don't know
Yeah,
when the Spawn character was birthed, but I definitely see like an influence there, especially the fact that the Phantasm has like a long grey waving coat, like cloak, sorry,
yeah,
and has with a hood, and then he's got a massive like claw hand, like a massive bladed gloved hand. So I definitely see like elements of Spawn within that particular character. And I generally
mhm,
feel as well, even though obviously DC was around a long time with Marvel, I do think the likes of like even Hellboy, Spawn, I think it really helped Marvel and DC pick certain characters and take them to a darker place. Like you mentioned, Ghost Rider. the Punisher. You know, we all know those particular characters have dark histories and pasts, but sometimes, like I said, Marvel will only take it to a certain level and drop out. Where hopefully, thanks to inspiration by the likes of Spawn and Hellboy, that they weren't afraid to take it even darker. Like for example, that episode where the Joker basically blows up Robin, Tim Drake, and kills him.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
would that have potentially have happened if you didn't have the likes of Spawn or Hellboy around to, you know, this dark, take it to the next level, to the extreme level. Comic books remind me of wrestling for some reason. So for example, back in the Attitude Era of wrestling, you had WCW, and then you had the WWE, but the WWE still had the comedic wrestlers for a long time. So they had, characters who were like Indians, who was, Tatanka. You had, people like the Big Boss Man, who was a
Doink,
policeman. Dunk the
Doink the
Clown. They were
clown.
still very cartoony, and then WCW took it to the next level because
Yep.
they had obviously the NWO, but then you had Image Comics, for example. I'm using this as like a reference. Image Comics for me would be
Mhm.
the ECW of comics, who weren't afraid to
Yeah.
create these outlandish but darker, hardcore comics. So, you could definitely see, for example, right at the beginning, for a long time, there you go, Max. For a long
Yep.
time, yeah, you had, for a long time you could have had WWE, or sorry, DC, Marvel would have been the early era of WWE with all the cartoonish characters, and then DC would have been
Yeah.
WCW, and then ECW would have been Image.
Image.
And and like you
Yeah.
say, it was in the 90s. It was around that time where people's cultures were changing, pop culture was changing. They wanted more edgier content. So Image Comics came around at the right time where that was starting to manifest. So you had
Yeah.
edgier television, MTV, Adult Swim, and now even took on edgier comic books. And Marvel, not Marvel, so Image was at the forefront of that alongside, I guess, Dark Horse Comics as well.
No.
And
No. Yeah. I mean, it's true.
so Spawn
Yeah. Yeah.
came out
There you
in
go.
1992 and Phantasm come out the year after 1993. That's very interesting. It's very interesting.
See. Yeah. No. No. I was just gonna say. It's true. Like the analogy that you're using. It's true. Um the way WWE, had Marvel, like Marvel, they still had the kid friendly content, and WCW started taking it a little darker within the NWO, and then Image was ECW, who didn't give a shit.
Yep.
ECW was like that, we don't care. We're gonna do how we do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's true. Like in the film, I just want to put it this, like add to this, like in the film, um, even though he was an executive producer, Todd McFarlane says, okay, you can tell I want this, I want this. I don't know if you remember, but there was a time when Spawn gets away from the authorities and he's starting to get used to the cape, and then he's in the corner of a building, and you just see the cape flowing down, flowing, like flapping in the wind. Like that's definitely from the comics. And I was like, and then there's another one where he's like he's squatting on top of a building. I think it was a Celtic cross, and you see the whole if Gojira's watching, he can say there, like his cape was just like, it looks like blades in the sky, but the cape is just like, running against the wind, but it's
Mm.
expanding like very, very, very
I
out
think,
there. And
well, obviously not knowing the comic books, but I will say, just from my point of view, as a person watching the movie, is when I've seen a lot of the scenes where Spawn's on a building, or like certain ways he stood and you got to see his face, you could definitely see like there were like images they were trying to capture from the comic covers. So, like,
yeah,
if
exactly.
Spawn was hanging on the side of a building like that, and his cape was flowing at the side on the front of a comic cover. It was like they were trying to
Yeah.
capture that image for the fans, so the fans could go and watch this film and go into it and go, "That's so fucking cool. That's the Spawn I know. That's the Spawn I like. That's the Spawn I remember from the books and the comics I'm reading." And they've captured it all in live action.
Yeah. Exactly, brother. Exactly. You see good analogies, man. Even though you're learning about it, you still have that. You get it, like you get it,
Mm-hmm.
like you understand it. You know what I'm saying? And
Well,
that's the best part of it.
Well,
That's you
the
understand it.
biggest analogy I can honestly see when it comes to filmmaking is Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019. We were fans of the original movies of Godzilla, and
Yep.
basically Michael Dougherty, he basically created a Godzilla movie for the fans. And the way the kaiju moved, the way they operated, there were everything we loved about the original films, but more realistic. They made all the kaiju act like real animals. So King Ghidorah, the way the necks move was like a snake or even sometimes when I
Serpent.
had seen the other serpent, or even when the head dropped and the tongue would flick out, it was like a Komodo dragon.
Yeah.
Rodan moved like a bird. But
Yep.
there were certain scenes, like for example, when he flew over, like in the original Rodan film, when he flew over Mount Fuji, there were certain scenes when he was flying across the ocean after the jets. My mind was like, I remember that from then, but now they've done the same thing, but they've just perfected it and made it much more visually pleasing to the eyes with modern technology.
Yeah.
So I
No,
was really
exactly.
pleased with that.
Yeah, because and you're right. Because like exactly like you said, Doherty made it. He made it. He made a Godzilla movie for the fans by a fan,
Mm-hmm.
and me like by all means, man. I know a lot about Spawn, but I'm not an expert. But I know about something that I really enjoy. Like I know about some of the history and everything. But I'm not like I don't have like Spawn all over my whole room, but I mean, I like multiple things, I like multiple genres, multiple
Yeah.
characters, like yeah, like my brother just said, Kevin, like Rodan moving like an actual bird of prey, like a huge falcon or a wolf, and then Ghidorah like a serpent, like a dragon, and then Spawn in the film, like Todd McFarlane was making it like, well, I want to make it for the fans. I'm pretty sure he would want to do that now that he's older, but I would understand why he would want to outdo that movie and make it better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's what I'm saying, man. Like I really love Spawn, and if it ever came to a point where he actually gets to do it, even if it's gonna be through Blumhouse, I would actually be all for it. But like even this movie, man, even this movie, I like it. It to me, how do you say it? How do Fat Samurai and Lady Fabulous say it's trash, but it's good trash?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like how they say it. I don't think it's total trash, but
Yeah.
like
It's
Lady
bad,
Fabulous
but
and
it's good bad.
yeah, exactly. It's like I remember one time when she said it's like it's trash, but it's trash that I like watching. It's trash
Mm-hmm.
that I love watching. And it's like because like I said, general, like you said, general audiences will be like, this and that. But for true fans like me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh yeah, like, I'll watch it. Just if I'm not doing nothing, like I watched it the day before yesterday, and I'm like, I'm still gonna like it. If
Mm-hmm.
they never make it and it stays in development hell, hopefully it doesn't for this modern reboot. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
fine with that one. But that's just me though, because I don't.
Yeah.
I'm very. All you guys know I'm very biased, and I don't. It does not take.
I,
It does
I
not
think,
take it like a lot for me to
yeah.
get. To get it is. It doesn't take a lot for me to be excited or be like to be
Yeah, the
thrilled
time
about
though
something.
they've taken to make it, I think Michael Beaton or I think Jamie Foxx will be out as Spawn. They'll have to bring in somebody new. And Michael B.
Yeah,
Jordan's a
exactly.
possibility because he's very popular right now. He's already been in
Yeah,
comic book movies. Whether he would make a good Spawn, I do not know. Even look at Marvel. Well, there's one character we never mentioned who was probably dark as well, which is, I should have mentioned earlier, Blade. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
ever since Marvel got the right back to Blade, that particular film has been in development hell for a long time within the world of Marvel. It's like, they had cast. I can't remember who the cast as Blade for the MCU, but they cast a different actor, and then obviously it's been in development hell, or rewrite or whatever the hell's going on with it. And I think they did have a release date for it, or they were going to announce one, then they changed their mind, and then eventually, the worst kept secret in the world. We eventually got, Deadpool and Wolverine, and guess who turned up? It turned up to be Blade, played by,
Blade.
Wesley Snipes again, which was a pleasant, look to the eye. Just amazing the fact that he came back. And I generally think, there was something said in that particular film. There's only one man that's ever played Blade and should ever play Blade, and that is Wesley Snipes. And I think, just like anything else, he should get at least a legacy sequel, because obviously Blade Trinity left a bad smell in everybody's, a bad smell and a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So they at least give
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes a solo Blade movie, or for Disney Plus, a 6-episode, legacy series where you can just wrap up things, and give him that, respect he deserves for what he did with the character. I'd be all for that. But because Marvel seem to be stuck on what they want to do with the character, I don't know if it'll ever happen. And if he does keep being in these kind of films, I think it'll just be like what's happening. He'll keep turning up in these little cameos and making little appearances, because you also have to remember the age of Wesley Snipes as well. Wesley Snipes is getting up there in age, and I don't want it to be a case where, they do a Harrison Ford and they come back 5-6 years down the line when he's like pushing late 70s, early 80s, and he's just not the character that, or who we remember and love. I'd rather them do it while he's still physically fit and able to do it, because I don't
Yeah.
want
And
to. I don't want another Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny situation where I just hated that movie. They ruined the Indiana Jones character.
I mean, you're right, and I don't want to. I won't even watch it. When D Film Fanatic told me, dude, don't even watch it. He says, don't even watch it. And I was like, dude, is it that bad? And that's not that bad, dude. It's just like freaking Harrison Ford is pushing 80. So
Mm-hmm.
he's like, you shouldn't be doing that, And I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna say for the new Blade, his name, the new character that's been in he's the character that's even like he might even pull out, but his name is Marshala Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the one that's gonna play the new Blade. But even I've heard on the grapevine and through internet rumors that he's getting tired and fed up of all the changes and what they want to
I
do,
don't blame him.
and and I mean, I think he also, just like John Berthal, who's gonna come, who came back as the Punisher in the new Daredevil show. I think Marshala Ali does not want Blade to go into a PG style of
Yeah,
character. I think he wants to keep Blade the way, like you said, Wesley. To us, Wesley Snipes will always be Blade.
yeah,
Like he's gonna be the only one we consider Blade, And he even
mm-hmm.
said it in he even said it in the movie. He's like, "There's
Yeah.
only one Blade. There'll only ever be one Blade."
That was Ryan.
And
Ryan Reynolds did that, and he looked at the camera when he said it. It was like, breaking the fourth wall. He goes, and there will only ever be one Blade, and it was like a comic
yep,
moment. But I think if you're gonna keep that in a movie and you're gonna say that, then you need to stick to it. So I think, and don't forget you've got the multiverse thing. So of course, Wesley Snipes' version of Blade is a part of the multiverse. So they can always bring in a new actor to play a new version of a character, because that's the whole point of the multiverse, no one's dead. There's no stakes anymore, and that's something that, you know, the great thing about movies is you love it when they've got something to fight for. You love it when the stakes, you know, that they've got to go after, where things are dangerous and deaths could potentially be around the corner for some people. But when there's nothing to fight for, or there's no real risks or no real stakes to fight for, because you can just say, right, and a character dies. Next movie, all right, we found a gem that can bring them back to life. So what was the last movie about? Why did they go through all that crap in the previous movie if they can just get brought back? And that's, you know, a lot of people are saying that with the MCU now, because the multiverse thing, and basically for me, with the MCU, the multiverse thing is simply to be able, the reason they brought that into the forefront, so they can recast actors that can then continue years down the line. If, say, you know, if, say, Chris Hemsworth gets to an age where he's like, I don't want to play this movie anymore, I'm too old, he can then, you know, they can write him out as Thor and bring in a young actor to play Thor and just add him into the MCU as a newer version of the character. You know, what they call a variant. They can bring a new actor in as a new variant of Thor and go, oh, there we go. The old Thor's still around, but because the actor's gotten old and he doesn't want to play that role anymore, we'll replace him with a new actor as a new variant, and boom. It's like, you know, and there's all this talk about Doctor Doom. The only way I see that working with Robert Downey Jr. is he would have to be a variant of Tony Stark, that in his universe he didn't grow up to be Tony Stark, but he grew up to be Victor Von Doom. It's the only way I can see it working.
No, I mean, and that would, they would have to go. That's what I'm saying. Now that the multiverse is around, man, now they can go different. They can go so many different ways. But it's like you said, like it's just like in comic books. How many times have characters died and they come back just out of nowhere?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Wolverine. Wolverine just died a few years ago and now he's back.
Yeah,
so
like I think in comic books it's different. I think when it's live action movies, if you cast an actor who's much loved, unless you're going to just turn around and go, right, we're going to end the film series of that version with the actor. For example, Wolverine should have ended his character, ended with Hugh Jackman, right? He died. So the Wolverine, his version of Wolverine's no longer here. They could have simply added a new version of Wolverine into the MCU, but they'll not do that because they know the popularity of Hugh Jackman. In the new, having him and Ryan Reynolds in a film is going to put butts on the seats. And it was a fun and entertaining movie. But it's like you said, I love Logan that much, and I even love Logan, the black and white version. And I still get, teary-eyed when I watch the end of that movie. In the first 5 minutes of Deadpool and Wolverine is that they go to his graveside from Logan, and he's just playing with the fucking dead body of Logan and like using it as a weapon. It's like, yes, it's funny, but a part of me was like, I wish they'd just left that alone. But obviously they had to do something to explain how we're going to get Hugh Jackman back if, they had killed him off.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's what I'm saying. Like, if they can do that in that style, and especially for Marvel, well, we also gotta remember, what's up, Tony? What's up? We gotta remember, man. Todd McFarlane does not have. Yeah, he has money, he has power, but he doesn't have a studio like the MCU. Doesn't have the money that Disney. He doesn't have the money that Disney has, and I bet you if he won't do it. Like, Todd McFarlane will not sell out Spawn to Disney or to any other top, like, how do you say, any other top movie studio, because he knows that if he does, they'll only give him so much power. But I guess he wants full power for that, and I guess that's why he's going towards a more independent route, because
But then
it just.
I look at Blumhouse when it comes to Spawn. They're not as independent. Blumhouse for me are up there. Is like they're the Disney of horror right now, and they're making these fucking horror jump scare. The effects in the movies are just shit. Night Swim, which Mr. Tony the Dead knows is my, I fucking detest that movie. Imaginary was fucking garbage. I haven't even tried to watch Exorcist Believer, but everything that's come down the pipeline since then, since they decided, right, story is second in putting butts in seats and putting, making these a horror movie out of everything, out of anything. That's what matters. So I'm waiting for the next movie, which is about a haunted fucking toaster, to come out next, because they'll do anything to make a movie. And it's just hollow fucking bullshit, where you get the likes of like A24, the likes of Neon, who they're still classing themselves as independent, studios. The budget that they set for their films is like the medium level, and they're more about story and consistency with story than fucking getting a book butts and seats and making a quick buck, which is what fucking, unfortunately, that is what Blumhouse has become. And it wouldn't surprise me if Blumhouse with the team with Disney one day to make a movie, because I just get the same energy and vibe from them now. They used to be good, but they're not good anymore to me. And I think the change once they got the rights to Halloween. I think once they got the rights to Halloween and they created the Halloween trilogy, you're just seeing them change. That was all about taking an already established franchise and turning it into the pile of shit that we got. And rather than amazing storytelling with characters that were like and making it good, they just, in originally the Halloween films were meant to be just 2 films. But then because it made so much money, they turned it into a trilogy, and the trilogy was garbage.
I mean, and we don't want a movie made by Blumhouse by Spawn, or in other words, we don't want a new Spawn movie to be fucking shit. Like we don't like now that you tell me this, man, I knew about Blumhouse, but now the more you tell me, it's like now maybe Todd McFarlane is more.
So
maybe that's why he's not connected. Maybe he's more hesitant. Maybe he's more hesitant. And
why do you think Blumhouse? In my opinion, why do you think Blumhouse wants Spawn? They want Spawn because they want to create a character that's going to be successful, so they can spin it off into so many, spin-off movies and franchise. They want to franchise the fuck out of it, like Disney have with the MCU. Anything that makes a profit, they make a franchise. John Wick, boom, franchise. Nobody, get Nobody 2 this year, franchise. And if Spawn, I guarantee you, when Spawn hits, if they don't do this thing well, that pleases the original fans, not just the general fans, but the original fans. I guarantee you it's going to fail. That's why I like Mike Mignola, because he did his movies with Guillermo del Toro. The first 2 Spawn films, Spawn did reasonably well profit-wise, but it didn't break the bank. It didn't do amazing. But it did enough that the studio warranted to have a sequel. The sequel very much made around the same amount of money as the first one. So it was after the sequel didn't do well that the studio went, we're not getting really enough of a return. So because we're not getting enough of a return, we're not going to let you finish your trilogy. And that's when they ended up doing the 2 animated Hellboy films. And then they decided, right, we're going to give it a go and do another version and another studio of Hellboy. It was a total fucking flop. The reason it was a flop is because Neil Marshall had his vision, had his idea, and that's why the actor David Harbour signed on. The studio got involved, got so much studio interference. The film turned to fucking shit. David Harbour couldn't wait till it was over. The film was released. It was a flop. It was a load of shit. And then you've got this new studio, an independent studio that created this new Hellboy, which everyone I've heard either had mixed reviews or have enjoyed it. But the budget on it, mind, is nowhere near Del Toro's budget, which is fair enough. But what I love about the movie, it is the story. I love the ghost story element within the film because it reminds me of what I see on the pages of the books. And the story is very much a Mike Mignola story. And even he said, if this didn't make a profit, I couldn't give a shit because it's my Hellboy. It's the version of Hellboy I always wanted to see on screen. And I made it happen.
I mean, and I want to ask you. That's another question I wanted to ask you about that.
1 second.
About the Spawn. Yep. This is one of my favorite antagonists in Image altogether. Y'all know that. And but I was
Sorry, I had to.
And I surely. It's okay, and I surely do not want anybody to fuck up this character if they ever did a remake of Spawn.
Yeah,
because this is just freaking. It's like, but I was gonna tell you. Do you think? I mean, I want to know what you think first. Do you think a new Spawn film would need to be by a how can I put it, man? Do you think a new Spawn movie can be made on a low budget?
Yes.
And I want to say, okay, that's your answer. Okay, I think because of all of the technology that they would need to use for Al Simmons' Spawn, his cape, the chains, the Violator. You know, if they bring Violator in, I think they would need a bigger budget. I don't think they can do it without a big budget. I think it would need.
Depends on the budget, but look at Godzilla -1, 50 million. It's not always about the budget. It's mostly about the story. So if they can tell a compelling, interesting story that grabs people enough to want to watch, everything else comes secondary. Obviously, yes, you do want a certain budget to make a certain film, but as long as the story is good and compelling and you have interesting characters that grab the audience, they can work around the budget. Now, the only thing I would say about Hellboy the Crooked Man, there's a lot of people that, you know, are hesitant to see it because of who's been cast as Hellboy. But for me, as a fan of the comic book, does he look like Hellboy? Yes, but he's a lot smaller build than, say, Ron Perlman. But don't forget, Ron Perlman had a suit on. He had like a muscle suit on.
Yeah. He had a bodysuit.
So did David Harbour. This character, I think he does have a muscle suit, but I don't think it's of the size of the one that we saw in those movies because it's probably the budget. But how he conveys the character, he does convey the character like he is meant to be in the book. He's more serious in the book. He tells like the odd like stupid joke, or he makes the odd stupid funny comment, but in all, he's a very grounded, serious character. in terms like I've got all the books. Like he'll make the odd joke like he did in the like what he did in the Ron Perlman film. So I used to go, "Oh crap!" He says that all the time
Yeah,
in the books. Or he'll make the odd joke, but the stories are much darker and much more serious in tone. So
yeah,
for me, he did justice when it comes to it's the story, and so they fitted the character around the story, and the budget isn't big, but I still enjoyed it. And I think
yeah,
if they can make the story true to who Spawn is, the fan should follow.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's. I mean, I didn't say like a huge budget. Maybe like 18 million.
Hmm.
18 million just to. But like you said, the story to be way more grounded. But I think it would just have to focus more on Spawn wanting just to get Wanda back, and like he did in the comics. The movie was also comedic, but the movie could. Gojira made a good point last time we were talking about it. That movie was borderline rated R, but they just used like certain things, certain phrases that they could have said, well, shit, it could have been just this much more to be a rated R film. And
Hmm.
but this is the 90s though. This was the
Yeah.
90s when it was made in the
Don't
90s. Like
forget,
everybody,
like
you know.
the original Spawn had a budget of 40 to 45 million. Now, that if they give the new Spawn the same budget, because modern films now, I think, the lowest budget you're talking nearly just between 90 to 100 million would be a modern budget, like a
Yeah,
moderate budget. If they were to give the new Spawn the 40 to 45 or even 50 to 60 million, that would be considered a reasonable budget
yeah,
for that kind of
yeah.
film.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean,
I
I
do,
just I
I
just
do
figured
think,
because
I do think though, I do think Spawn would have to have a bigger budget than Hellboy because Hellboy, apart from having the tail and the big glove, which you can do practical, you know, everything else around him, can either be practical suitmation or visual. But with Spawn having like that massive cape cloak that but basically is like an entity on
the
its own.
chains.
Yeah, you'd probably
Yeah,
need a bigger budget for that, depending how they do off the scene. Like how much was the budget for the rebooted Mortal Kombat film? I could see that size budget
yeah,
for Spawn.
yeah. Oh, exactly. And I mean, I didn't think about that too. And the thing about also um, the suit being in a film, like you said, it would have to be of a higher, maybe a little higher budget because of the CGI that would have to be used because of his chains, because his face would have to go from the mask, the original face mask that he uses, to the burnt face plus the coloring, plus the if they want the cape to flow around like it did, and then his magic power because he can use his green energy blast, and then adding Violator. If you have to add Violator is not a small antagonist, and then you have to get someone that's gonna play the clown right, and you have to go from he has to go from his metamorphosis from the clown to the actual Violator, um,
Mm. Well, there you
actual
go.
to the Violator's actual theme.
So,
But
Mortal Kombat 2021 had a budget of 55 million. So, if they can do,
that would be enough.
mhm. Like I said before, that's considered a lower budget because if you think the original Spawn was made between 40 to 45 million, so technically they could do a new Spawn with an extra 10 million on top of the original budget. So so really,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
back
and
then, 55 million isn't a great deal for the kind of movie that they made.
yep, and I forgot to mention that now that you brought in the how Spawn's suit actually acts of his own, has its own mind. It's actually called his suit is actually called a K7 Letha.
Mm.
So the suit is called a K7 Lita, and it's its own entity that feeds off of his spinal what do you call it, is a spinal um liquid, like the spinal the spinal cord liquid that's in his
Mm.
that's in his spine, and that's why it feeds off of the spinal fluid. There you go. And that's why they call it the K7 Lita. And I think they would just need the budget just enough higher, like you said. I think 40 would be good.
So,
What's
what is
Spawn's
Spawn's
weakness?
weakness?
Spawn's weakness would be that he has he's susceptible to um, the power of, let's say, um, angelic elemental and angelic fire. Like, do me a favor, Kevin. Can you bring up the picture of the Redeemer?
The Redeemer.
Yeah, there you go. The Redeemer. The Redeemer has an astral energy that's basically based off of heaven's. The Redeemer is an anti-spawn.
Neko.
Hey, what's up, Neko? The Redeemer is an anti-spawn. The Redeemer is actually the counterpart to a Hellspawn. It's actually the Redeemer is an a warrior from heaven, and in that universe, the Redeemer has the elemental energy. Yeah, holy weapons and his own trauma. The holy weapons of the Redeemers and their astral energy is what's actually really harmful to Spawn. But Spawn
Mm.
has a lot, holy weapons, kind of the same thing as a Hell Spawn, so certain weapons would affect them. But
Mm.
like I said, going back to that, the Redeemer's energies are really harmful and fatal to Spawn. If Spawn can get, just like anything, he can get his head chopped off. If he gets his head if he gets decapitated by holy weapons, he's done. And if he uses too much of his necroplasm, too much of it, he'll die again, and he'll go back to hell, to the eighth spear of hell with Malbolgia. But
Wow.
yeah, that's pretty much what I know.
So, you've mentioned, you know, h- like the kind of film you want. I think if they're gonna do a Spawn movie, since we've never had one since 1997, would you like them, when it came to do the story? Would you like them to do a story that's like another origin story, like they did with the 1997 one?
Yes. I would like a straight up origin story of Spawn, or maybe I wouldn't mind bringing back Michael Jai White. He's old, but he's not super old. I don't mind. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind bringing him back, and let's say going back to, let's say, a future, like a him playing an older Spawn in the future, like in a modern day. Like he would be like, that's what I would. What's up? I didn't see the comment, but um I think that would be okay to bring him back as an older Spawn, but still in a modern day era. But that I wouldn't mind
Well,
that.
but you've
But
mentioned, like you did mention earlier when you were telling us the history of the Spawn character, that there's different versions. Like different people have become
mhm,
Hellspawn, so that's part of the law, right?
mhm,
So they could
yeah,
always do something where they bring him back as Al Simmons, and he is like an
mhm,
older version of a Hellspawn, and the film could feature him, but then you introduce to a younger character that would become this person that would, if they did a sequel, would replace him
mhm,
and could carry the
yeah,
trilogy as the new Spawn. So he could become uh, gunslinger Spawn. He could become, well, who was the other, medieval Spawn? Or maybe not medieval, but they could do a Spawn trilogy where you go through the history of the different kind of Spawns. And that would be a great way to keep him in and make him like a legacy character and a legacy
yeah,
actor that kind of
mhm,
is a showing of respect as well, to basically have him featured And then after he's featured, you then can continue the story if the film's successful in a sequel with this new character as Spawn. It feels very much like what they did with the Batman Beyond series, where you had Bruce Wayne, and then you had the new guy that came in as the futuristic version of Batman. You could do that in the world of Spawn.
No, no, of course, but like, I mean, you have that's a great point, and but I would say since Spawn is immortal because of him being a Hell Spawn, you can bring Michael Jai White, and then Michael Jai White can get to a point where he's about to go back. He's about to, like, his energy's running out, and he's getting older, and he wants to, and he's probably like dying, and then he can go back. Once he dies, they pass it on, and they come up with a new Spawn, like a younger Spawn, and or they can go back, and just reboot and do Al Simmons all over again, like they were gonna do with Jamie Foxx. But one thing I would really like is a spinoff of the Violator.
Yeah,
like I would want a spinoff where they can introduce Violator's origin as one of the Fleabag brothers, and that's probably what I would like just an origin on him, but
something like the Penguin, like what they did with the Batman, but obviously with Coral Farrell.
Exactly.
They've done the Penguin series, but you would want something similar tone, but with the Violator, the clown.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any other villains outside of the ones you've mentioned that you'd love to have an appearance in a film or a future animated movie?
Oh man, not just a Violator. Bring back Malbolgia. Bring in well, she's Marvel now, but you can bring in Angela, but she's owned by Marvel. They can bring in the Forsaken. I think he was an evil version of the Redeemer, and then we have Tremor. Tremor's not. I would love to have Tremor.
I'd like that.
The Cenobites, yeah, exactly.
I'd like that.
And then there's so many, man. Like there's
what about this particular
they can bring in.
I found this image of a character. Who's this character? Because I've just seen this image and I thought he looked badass.
Oh, that looks like I think I forgot his name. The Soul Crusher. I think that looks like the Soul Crusher, or I might be wrong. It might be someone else. But I forgot. Man, what is this? No, it's not the Soul Crusher. So I forgot his freaking name, man. It's at the tip of my head, but I think I don't remember.
Maybe Gojira 851 might know.
Yeah, Gojira 851 might know who he is.
If anybody's watching in the comments below and you know the name of this character, I'd like to know.
Yeah, because I know that. Yeah.
On Spawn, you know, I've seen this image, I've seen this character, and I thought, whoa, he looks motherfucking bad. And I like it.
Yeah, like I mean, it kind of looks, it kind of looks like the Soul Crusher, but I don't know. But I think there was another name for him, man. But it's because there's so many characters, but there's other characters that are very, I know, but I'm not saying. Okay, Tony, come on, stop, stop teasing us, man. There's like, but there's other, I forgot his freaking name, man. Oh, there's, of course, there's Omega Spawn. There's Plague Spawn. Plague Spawn is one of the new big bads that's on a godly level, and not even Omega Spawn was able to take him down. Oh, I would love to see in a film version. I would love to see what's his name? Overkill. I would love to see Overkill on there. But those are more of the older ones. And then we have Raven Spawn. He's one of Malbolgia's hell. What do you call it? Death Knights.
I've discovered the name. The name of that character is Cursed.
Oh, cursed. Okay, yes, the cursed. Yes, I'm sorry. I mean, I can't. It's because, like I said, I'm more in tune with the older style of the retro style of Spawn. I'm not up to date with a lot of the newer ones, and
It's got Curse. The Curse is a fanatic and deranged villain in Spawn, obsessed with capturing Spawn to extract what he views is the secret to true power.
yeah, he chopped off his arm and pledged himself to God. He pledged himself to God, but then when he wasn't answered about wanting to be he find a place in heaven, he uh he went mad. But then he also went to school and became a multimillionaire and actually rebuilt himself an actual metal arm and wanted to go after Spawn. But he said since he couldn't get since him to himself couldn't say he couldn't find a place in heaven, he wanted to take over hell, which was he was tripping because
Oh
there's no way he
wow!
could have done that. Yeah, he wanted to take over. He wanted to take over. Try to even take over hell. So he wanted to get information about Spawn, but Spawn wiped the floor with him easy. Like Spawn just ripped off his new mechanical arm, pinned him against the wall, and just let him hung there, bro. And yeah, the curse, yeah, dude. And then there's also it's because there's so many, but I don't know. I'm only good with the ones that I recognize, and
Mm.
um the
What do you
curse,
think
the
about
curse.
what do you think about this particular crossover idea? Spawn and Constantine.
That would be good.
Mhm. Like I know
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves played Constantine in the movie, which I've
Well, he's gonna
never.
play. He's gonna play two.
Is
He's gonna be in part two.
I know that there's been talk of for a long time of a sequel. So to be honest, I'm going to be really honest. I think you've got more chance of seeing a Constantine 2 at this point than a Spawn reboot. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think, see, I've got every faith in Blumhouse if they take the time with it. But if they fast track it,
Yeah.
I'll be worried.
Yeah. But I think Todd McFarlane would not want to do that because I think just in my opinion, I think there's some inner
Don't
like inner
forget what happened
turmoil
with
going on
what
between.
happened with the Crow. Once the creator and the
Yeah.
writer of the Crow signed on the contract, the license, the Crow to be, to have another live action reboot, and the contract was signed. The writer was, he'd signed the right to it, and whatever they did happened. And as we know, the results were not that good. I know. I was only the second person in my theatre to see that piece of shit. I'm surprised the fucking
Oh,
Crow didn't jump out the screen and strangle us for actually paying money to go see it. It was that shit. So
remember that even I even told you that even Bill Skarsgård saw when he saw the screening, he didn't even like it.
yes, yes, and guess what? The director of the movie actually criticised Bill Skarsgård for criticising the movie he starred in. But at the end of the day, I said this the other day. He starred in the movie, and everybody's entitled of opinion when you decide to put something out there on screen. And guess what? Even the cast are allowed to have an opinion. And if, of course, Bill Skarsgård did not enjoy the experience working on that particular movie, which he has said he got frustrated on the set because things were getting changed as the movie was being filmed, he is allowed to let people know that. And I don't blame
Yeah,
them. It's
no,
a bit like
exactly, man.
it's like what I said. It's like what I told you earlier about David Harbour. David Harbour could not wait to get off the set of the Hellboy 2019 film. Him and Neil Marshall were frustrated because the studio were keep getting involved while they were filming the movie, and in the end, they both just wanted to get it done and dusted. So I don't blame them. I don't blame them if they've got issues. If they sign on, under the conditions of a contract, fair enough, but they get sold to join a movie or whatever they're getting told by producers or directors. And then when you join that production because you have this vision in your head of what they've told you, and as you're filming or as the production is, continuing, the image or whatever they're producing isn't what they sold you on, you would be annoyed and you would be frustrated because that's not why you signed onto that production or that particular film. If the film got released afterwards and it was a flop, then you can just shrug your shoulders and go, well, I did what was written on the tin. I did what, I thought was a good project. Didn't do as well. I move on to the next one. But when you're actually on the film set and you're being frustrated and annoyed because the studio's lying to you, the director's changed his direction or he's changed this and that, you can see where you hear all these stories coming out of Hollywood from different actors and people who work on these sets.
Oh, remember, brother. Remember, it wasn't a reboot. It was one. It was supposed to be my vision of The Crow.
Mm-hmm. Which was a load of shit. It was so shit. If it was sprinkled on toilet paper, I'd rather use nettles to wipe me arse.
You'd rather use sandpaper to wipe your ass.
Mm-hmm. Correctamundo. But I think
no, but I would say,
no.
I just want to say one more thing before we go, man. And I'm this is all credit to Skarsgård, but if it was possible, probably never, but I wouldn't mind Bill Skarsgård just because of his talent as far as characters. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't mind him playing the Violator. I wouldn't mind him at all playing Violator.
Oh, I could see him as the clown in a fat suit and then
you see what I mean?
Yeah. The thing is, I've said this about Bill Skarsgård. He's a very talented actor. It's just that some of the project he goes for whatever reason, they don't seem to get the promotion they deserve. So, for example, me and Anubis both agreed. Both agreed that we love Boy Kills World. It's a fantastic movie. Loved it. And then I watched a film called Locked, which is him and Anthony Hopkins. Basically, him, he gets locked in this car, and basically it's just a two-character movie. It's not the greatest movie, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I like the relationship. I love the chemistry between the two of them. So he is a good actor, but I think he's also going to be typecast. And I don't want him to be because obviously he's going to be typecast in horror movies or gothic movies. Because even before he did Pennywise, he had done a number of things. He did that show that was based on all the Stephen King's books where he was trapped in the asylum. Forgot the name of the show, but that was a good show. Of course, now he's done Nosferatu. So I'm hoping he's going to branch out more, and I think once he does, I think people will see a different side of him. But I could definitely see him in a Spawn reboot. And this is who Gojira 851 thinks he would be good at.
As Malbolgia? That's good. I just see him more as the clown because he already did Pennywise, and I think he can be just as brutal as when the clown turns into the Violator. But that's not a bad idea either, Gojira. I agree.
See, this is what I agree with Tony. I think if he did get cast as the clown, it's another typecast because everyone well, and then it's like, how do you make that stand out from Pennywise?
That's true.
And I think that's another reason why his version of Count Orlok, you never seen much of him. It was all about his personality via the voice. You know, he was all shrouded in mystery. He was always covered in darkness. You only seen him a handful of flashes of time until the very end, where he met up with Ellen, and he was like in the room with her. That's when you fully got to see him in like that, like this vampire corpse that was inspired by Vlad the Impaler from history.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
But anyway, of course, we've been talking about Spawn for the past 2 hours, and it's been an absolute blast. I've learned a lot. I know the history of Spawn. I've got a more strong foundation of the character, thanks to what you've told me. Very interesting stuff. I love the fact, before you even tell us about all the different Spawns, you know, I knew about them. I'd seen the covers of these stories like Gunslinger, Medieval Spawn, King Spawn. And for me, like you see, it's like a fucked up version of the Cenobites, but Hell Spawn, these things are coming from hell to kick your ass and to cause mischief. The villains in the Spawn universe are so, vile and disgusting, or evil and creepy and just downright sinister. And I'm loving it all. We've talked about we love of that animated series. We've talked about the original movie and what hopes for potentially the spin-off film. Not the spin-off film, the reboot film. And you never know if they don't do a Spawn reboot live action movie. Why don't they just reboot the fucking animated series or do an animated movie? I think, and bring Joe White back and do the voice. Sorted.
Exactly. I agree.
Yes. But before we go, I'll let everybody know that the next episode of Education is going to be me and my good buddy, my co-host a lot of the time on my channel, Mr. DJ Anubis, and he's going to be teaching me all about heavy metal. So that's going to be an interesting one. And also tomorrow, you can join me and DJ Anubis when we're going to be sitting down together to talk about a classic film from the same year, I believe, that Spawn came out, 1997, Mimic, in our cinematic synergy. And I'll also be releasing my top 10 Clint Eastwood movies. But that's what's coming up on the entertainment headquarters for the next couple of days. And like I say, this has been a hell of a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this. Is there anything coming up on your channel, Mr. Sci-Fi Sentry?
So far, just more gameplay on the first Berserker Kazan, which I'm literally addicted to now. And me and DJ Anubis are gonna co-host when we can plan it out, when we can set a date, and that's gonna be for Event Horizon. And once everybody can, we can all bring everybody come to an actual date. We'll set the date as soon as we can get everybody's what do you call it? We can get everybody's schedule right, and we can find out when we can all do it. But as far as that goes, we're still on there. That might be probably May, I'm thinking, but we don't know yet. But I'm leaving it in Anubis's hands because he's
May the 11th.
There you go.
Set the date for May the 11th, and I think I've got a couple of streams coming before that. I do have my next retro classic movie show, which is going to be Reign of Fire, and we'll also have the next classic kaiju review, which is going to be the X from Outer Space, which I'm really looking forward to. But that's what's coming up on the entertainment headquarters. That's what's coming up on my good friend Sci-Fi Century's channel. We are the Sci-Fi Collective. There's a lot of us here. There's a lot of us that have banded together to bring you the best damn content we all possibly can. So please look out for raw, real, and we all like to get cracking when it comes to when it comes to a content. But yes, please look out for all of the Sci-Fi Collective's amazing content. But until then, this has been education. This has been educating me on Spawn. This has been the entertainment headquarters. And like I always say, I want you all to keep on enjoying your movies, keep on enjoying all things entertainment, and we'll catch us all at the next one.